Welcome, everyone. I'm Michele Cobb, publisher of AudioFile magazine, the #1 source for audiobook reviews in the world. And I'm excited for today's conversation about Transmentation Transience by Darkly Lem, narrated by Dion Graham. So I have two guests. Our first guest is Dion Graham himself. He's known for narrating A&E's The First 48 and acting in HBO's The Wire. And he's an acclaimed performer who has won many, many awards, including those for audiobooks, Audies, Odysseys, and Earphones Awards. And he is an AudioFile Golden Voice. Welcome, Dion.
Thanks, Michele. I'm really glad to be here.
And our next guest is Cadwell Turnbull, who is the Newcomb Institute Literary Award-winning author of The Lesson and the Lambda Award-winning author of No Gods, No Monsters. Welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Michele.
All right, now this is what I would call an unusual book. So I don't think I can do a good 30-second description. So I'm going to turn it to one of the authors to give us a quick description.
Okay. I describe Transmentation Transience as a multiversal workplace drama. Sometimes I talk about it as being a space opera meets a spy thriller, but it's really about these multiple multiversal societies that have been growing and traveling across the multiverse, and they're starting to hit up against each other, and conflicts are starting to ensue. And it's about the political ramifications of them meeting each other out in this great, vast multiverse that they inhabit.
Well, I think that's a very good description of it.
Bravo, Cadwell.
Thank God.
And now this book is completely unique because it's not just one person that's the author, this Darkly Lem. It's 5 people. You're one of those 5. So I'm so curious. How did this idea come about? How did you decide to write this whole novel together? And then what process did you use? Kind of fill us in.
Oh, those are really big questions, and to answer it, it's like we've been on quite a journey to get to where we are at this point. So it started out as a shared multiverse, and so we, Darkly Lem, are a part of a larger collective called the Many Worlds Collective, and the project is called Many Worlds, and we have I think 21 authors, including our pseudonym. It's a shared multiverse of all of these different authors bringing in their own universes and their own worlds into this like larger pot. And we wanted to do something that would help connect all of these, projects together, make it one cohesive thing. And we decided that we were going to write a multiverse trilogy. I mean, we didn't decide that we were going to do that to start, but we kind of accidentally ended up doing that. And so we met, we started outlining together, and we had written a short story together for the Many Worlds anthology. That was the first project that we ever did. Dion actually did some narration for that anthology. Thank you, Dion.
You're welcome.
And so we wrote that together, but we knew that we needed to kind of like sync back up to write a novel. And so we wrote the first chapter of the novel together as a group. We like opened up a Google Doc and we just started writing. And we wrote the entire first chapter that way, writing over each other, under each other, through each other.
Wow.
And we acquired through that effort Darkly Lem voice again. And we used that as the template for the rest of the book. And we outlined, and then we gave each other assignments. And then in order to get the voice right, or to bring the voice back together again, we edited together as a group. We met every Tuesday and Thursday for an hour and a half, and we argued through edits. We made edits. We have like a document where we kind of have like our coded language for the kinds of edits we're making. And one of them is called argue in room or air. And so anytime we had an air, we would say air in the document, and then we would debate for sometimes hours.
So they just thought they'd get together and, just casually off the cuff, write something complex and fantastic.
Right.
I'm curious, how long did the whole process take? Were we talking months, years, decades?
When did we start the first book? I think we started the first book. Oh no, they're going to be mad if I say this wrong. I think we started it in 2021. We started outlining in 2021. And then we started writing, I think, by 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And the writing process was fairly quick, like quick relative to the editing process. So it was, it takes me a long time to write a book by myself. And we were much faster than that in the drafting part of it. But the editing part of it took a ton of time. And so that first book, I would say it was probably a third of the time drafting and then the other 2/3 editing. It was like twice as long. And we've kind of, as we've been working, we're working on the third book right now. It's kind of shifted a bit. We're doing more outlining and we're taking more time with the drafting process. And so the editing has kind of it's faster now because it feels like we're more in alignment as we've been doing this.
Cad, would you like to identify who the other members of Darkly Lamb are?
I should have from the very beginning. So it's me, of course, Josh Urey, Craig Lincoln, Ben Murphy, and Darusha Wim.
Fantastic authors all.
Yeah, they're absolutely fabulous. I just want to say, like, this thing would not have existed if I wrote this by myself or any of us wrote it. Like, it really, the only reason it worked, it was because we all lended our various different like talents and pet peeves to the project.
All right, now Dion, I'm going to kind of suck you into this multiverse here, which obviously you're a part of.
Oh, here we go. Through a black hole, I'm sure.
So I'm curious, what is your personal connection to the themes, transformation, transience, and how did those influence your narration as you got into this?
Wow, that's a really great question, Michele. And it's funny because immediately I want to start laughing because, of course, Cadwell and I have talked about some version of this question many times and at great length. It's really funny. It's really funny to encounter a work and an artist and some other artists who suddenly are talking about things that you might have been thinking about since you were a little boy. The nature of reality. What if it isn't exactly what we think it is? What if whatever we think of as consciousness in this body that I'm in is transferable to other bodies and other places and other dimensions that I can't even imagine yet? It is true that for a long, long, long time, these and other things have been on my mind. And I've had a chance to geek out numerous times with Cadwell about the specifics of the multiverse that they've created here. But also just about like, wait, what? You too? You thought about what? You what? So to say all that is a lot of fun because this was really something to jump into and not as a sort of camp idea, but as to take a ride really on the possibilities and what the imagination might bring us from that.
Oh, it's definitely a ride, I can say as a listener.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Cadwell, did you and your fellow authors have a piece in casting Dion in this?
Yeah, I mean, Blackstone has been really great with allowing authors to kind of have a say in like who they want to work on projects. And we were kind of lucky. Dion had the time and was interested. I think that someone at Blackstone, and Dion might be able to answer this better than I can, but someone on Blackstone floated the idea that I was working on something like this and wanted to know if he might be interested. And Dion was more enthusiastic than I think me or anyone could have imagined. And so me and Dion talked on the phone, and he was like, "I would love to do this," and I was like, "I would love for you to do this," and it just kind of came together that way, and I was just very excited that he had the time and he was willing to come on board.
Oh, he's definitely been a champion of the title, I have to say. So
He says all this, Michele, knowing full well how deeply excited I am about the other work we've done together, which we'll talk about later. But and just about the imagination, the breadth of the imagination, the human connectivity, and if I can say humanity, that I find in all of his work, and the exploration. So he says all that, but he already knows. I already said, if you would like for me to do it, all you have to do is ask. And if I can work it out, I'm going to work it out. So of course I was excited. And then I didn't even really know when, and all thanks to Blackstone as well for for bringing us here in many different ways, but for putting us together. But when Blackstone approached me about it, and I took a look at what it, first of all, they said it's Cadwell's, and I was like, okay, check. Then I took a look at it, and I was like, oh, double check. So I think that it's a tremendous piece of work that is done. It's not, and for all the people who are like, oh, sci-fi, I just want to say that if you don't find yourself in here many, many times, I will be surprised, or something that at least can make you go, oh yeah, I just think it's this book, Transmentation, is the beginning of an incredible trilogy, and I can't wait to see where we go in the second book and where we go in the third book. And even though they're calling it a trilogy, maybe it's going to be a trilogy. We'll see. A trilogy so far.
You keep saying that, Dion.
Well, as someone who loves to travel, I loved the concept of this, that I could be, traveling without having to get on an airplane and pack a bag and all of those things, and sort of being in the consciousness elsewhere.
I was joking. Sorry, excuse me for interrupting you, Michele. I was just joking, Cadwell, with Michele the other day about, I remember back in the day, I might be on a trip and she'd always be like, oh, curse you. But she is the most well-traveled person that I know. So all I can say is a proxy would be great for you, Michele.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I've often thought about that Star Trek thing where they and you're just
Transporter.
molecules and all of that. But the funny thing that I was thinking about when I was listening to this actually is, beyond the concepts, I'm always fascinated by, if I read this with my eyes, I don't know if I could pronounce all of these words. And that's why I love having someone like Dion telling me how it sounds. And I'm curious how much collaboration went on. And Dion, beyond just the words themselves, did you get any guidance on tone and pacing from the authors and from Cadwell, or from the whole group?
Great questions, all of those. I will say, famously and hilariously first, yes, we talked we talked at length about pronunciation, because this is a created multiverse, obviously, and it's the world building is fantastic, and even though it's as full as it is, I understand, without even knowing what's coming next, that this is just a corner of what might be. So yeah, we definitely consulted on that. In fact, even after we consulted and we were underway, I felt like there was a time period when we were in the book where I was calling Cadwell every 5 minutes. Now, wait, what about this? Am I saying this the right way? And because there are 5 darkly limbs, we had to come together and make sure. I just wanted to make sure that I served what they were telling right. In terms of, yeah, collaborating, yeah, I'm always open to hearing everything. So I want to say yes in terms of all the other things you were asking about, tone and pace, but not specifically necessarily. Sometimes I just would want to know. I mean, I was definitely getting something from what they all wrote, but I definitely also wanted to know sometimes specifically what's happening in this moment, or what the meaning is for them, just to make sure that I could channel well. Does that make sense? What do you think about that, Cadwell?
You were fabulous at that, right? You were asking questions that we didn't even think to ask. And sometimes, so Dion would call and ask a question about something. And because there's 5 Darklies, I would have to take it to our Discord. And I would be like, so Dion's asking this, and I think this. What do y'all think? And then we would get like some version of a consensus or majority. And then
Yes, hopefully not too much Discord on Discord.
yeah. And then we would bring it back to Dion. I feel like everyone understood the assignment, that this had to be like a quick decision. We couldn't have our like half-hour decision making process that we usually do. And so everyone just responded back with, yeah, we think you should do this, or this is what we think. But I feel like we all trusted Dion a lot too, to do what he needed to do. And so we would give our impressions, and then we would just let Dion do his thing. And in so many ways, we were just like pleasantly surprised.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Were there any passages or chapters that you or any of the authors were maybe nervous to hear in audio?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. Maybe some of the other Darklies would have like a different thought about it. I love that we're using the nicknames, the Darklies.
Yeah.
We're very much a band. That's like that. I feel like that's the closest like
Took the words
analogy.
right out of my mouth.
Yeah, that's a close analogy. And we sometimes argue like a band, but then most of the time we're making good music together. I don't know. I think that we all have different moments in the books that are our favorites, from each other, from our own. And because we're editing each other's stuff, there's places where there's two or three of us that are like equally providing that part of the book, right? And so there were just moments that I was very excited to hear, and one of them was there's like this really beautiful, and Dion like just absolutely knocked it out of the park. There's this really beautiful moment with Tristeste, a character in the book, and her father, and they're having a fight, and a lot of stuff is under the surface, right? There's a lot of like tension before the fight happens, and not everything is said. Dion just absolutely just blew us away. Like it was like once one of us got there, we were just like, you gotta listen to this part. And then we all went there and then we all talked about it together. And it was one of those moments that was just fantastic to hear in audio form. There was another moment that I wasn't like I didn't know to be excited about it until Dion did it. And it was Malcolm, one of the characters in the book, meeting a mover that's a DJ, right? And he's like dancing. It's a trippy section, and I was like, this is really trippy. And of course, one of us brought their energy to that moment, and I really liked it in writing form, but I absolutely loved it in audio form. Like it was like, oh my gosh, this I did not expect so much life in there, So
Oh gosh, thanks so much. I just wanted to say thanks so much. And man, I also I just really had an amazing time taking the ride and discovering, even though of course I obviously read and prepared the book, but and discovering all of it, because as opposed to what you might think, okay, now and we're here and this is here's a science fiction way that this might go. I mean, I wouldn't approach it that way anyway, but I'm saying it could, but the way it unfolded was surprising to me sometimes, and the scenes you talked about were powerful and funny and moving and all kinds of things. So thanks, man. I appreciate that.
It really was to me as a listener a playground to work in because there were so many cool characters that I hadn't, and there were some of them were really small, like you sort of heard from them for one or two lines, and I just have these, sort of hearkenings back to, oh, that must have been really cool. I wonder how Dion sort of stood differently or did something differently to create that alien tone. Because you sounded like an alien.
Tell us one or two, Michele.
There was one, it was a couple of things were happening at the same time, and it was like a robot. It sounded like a robotic sound to me. I don't know that it was actually robot, but it kind of had that sort of robotic tone coming from you. They were all so different. I mean,
hmm hmm
and I just listened to it the last 2 days. It's like all mushed in my head, you know?
There's a million of them too. Yeah.
It's fascinating though. Well, it's so interesting to hear about titles that are created in a collaborative way because I think oftentimes with a book or an audiobook, it's one person doing their own thing. But here, obviously, both the writing and the narration process involved a group. And I think that's really different. And you feel some of that, or I felt as a listener that I was getting more perspectives in some way.
Yeah, let me speak to that a little bit too. Obviously, as you said, and it's true as Cadwell's been saying too, it's definitely a writing collaboration and a creative idea factory with Darkly Lamb. And also, if I will, I will say, I'll at least say that I got to play with the band, right? That I got to bring an instrument and play with the band as well. And it was really interesting and fascinating process because, of course, they wrote something incredible. They are writing some incredible things. But of course, as soon as you take that out of their own bedrooms, laboratories, and bring it out and you start collaborating with another artist, right? Then there's just other levels that are opened up and it's not exactly the same thing, right? And of course, this
hmm
is always true, but I just want to say that in terms of, I didn't have any preconceived notions, but I just really tried to be in response to what they wrote. And sometimes without knowing, but when I started, I couldn't tell you how that was all going to play out. And it was interesting. I discovered along the way, I'm like, okay, wait. And I know when you're reading it, yes, of course, I knew this in some way inside me. When I read it, I'm like, wait, this is written in a completely different way, and where the feel of it is completely different. And this one of the things I had to check. I'm like, well, is this? Am I receiving this right? And they're like, well, yes, we're in a different locality, we're in a different universe, and the predominant ethos, tone, all kinds of things are different from the other place, and that made sense to me. And it was good to be on the right track, so I could just lean in to what that is. I think of when I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about, for instance, the difference in the locality and homeworlds of the Avtalas, right? And their whole ethos, this life that we're leading is about the sagas, the tales. It's in this kind of spirit, and this is the tale. This is normal. This is not elevated. Even this is normal. I'm sorry. I immediately have to go into some here.
You're right. We hear your voice. Yes.
I love it.
It's also interesting because Kat shared with me that, like, one of the assignments, I guess, that they'd given each other, given themselves, was to write sometimes in certain kind of exploring the ideas, but in certain kind of styles. Like you were talking about one time, Cadwell, like, don't let me misrepresent, but sitcom style.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about Greater Iowa now.
This is like some deep.
Don't let me tell too much, actually.
We have a ton of debates about what genre. So, like, the whole book is in a genre, right? But each locality is not just the rules of the world, but they're in a different genre or subgenre or milieu or tone, right? And so, like, there's one place without. Can I say this? There's one place without giving too much away that's sort of like it's the genre that you expect, but it's the TV show version of that genre, right? And so things that are happening in that locality are things that would happen on the TV show version of that genre, right? And so, and then the characters are moving into that and experiencing that as strange, right? And so, and we're doing a lot of that in the future books, and we're playing with that a little bit more. I do want to say, because Dion was talking about it, we would write characters. We all have like hands in all of the different characters, and so we, like Prima is a character we've all written, or Malcolm, or whoever we're talking about. And we don't always agree among the five of us who those characters are, right? And up until, we're working on book 3, we're still fighting about who those characters are. I think that because of that, we were very interested or flexible in, like, bringing Dion in with his own interpretation. And we kind of was interested in what that interpretation would do to us. Like, there was kind of this like echoing process where he would interpret things a certain way, and they were like, oh, that kind of opened up something for that character that we hadn't thought about. And in some ways it brought us into sync in small ways or in interesting ways about characters that we had ourselves written.
So I'm curious, does this now impact the subsequent works you're writing?
Definitely. Dion was kind of doing a performance of a character in particular, Bainir. And I think that since hearing Dion's version of Bainir, we've had a lot of conversations about Bainir, and I think that had, yeah, and that has enriched that character for sure, at least in our conversations and how we're writing about him, and even how we're interpreting him amongst each other.
Versions.
Me too.
I cannot wait to find out how. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And his partner Shara as well. We can't give away too much. We're not giving away any spoilers here. But yeah, it's just incredible. And you are absolutely right, Michele, that I am a great champion of this work and of their work and of Cadwell's work, because it's great and expansive and specific, and it's great like that. And it's definitely I'm excited for people to get a chance to dive in and to swim around in it and swim around with themselves and their thoughts about all the things that are being brought up.
Well, I'm so glad that this universe was created and that we are, hearing about the collaboration that is pushing it forward into new places. So definitely more to listen to, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. This might be a good time to just bring up the Convergence saga, which is Cadwell's own creation. This is not a Darkly Lem creation, but his own creation, which is a completely different multiverse. I'll let him speak as to whether or not he feels like these multiverses are related at all, or are possibly related, or who knows whether they're related. The first, I guess technically, the first book in that, are we calling it 0.5 or 1.0 Cadwell is the lesson? Is that right? What would you say?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What would you say?
That is, I mean, sure.
Technically, the first book of the trilogy, I think, is No Gods, No Monsters,
Yes.
which I narrated, and I narrated also We Are the Crisis for the second one, and I'm about to bring to
Hmm.
life A Ruin, Great and Free, which is, at least as far as I know, the last book in the trilogy. And those books are incredible in terms of asking questions, as also this series as well, about identity and who are they? Who are we? Who am I? How do we feel about that? And is that a mutable thing? And all kinds. They're just jumping off points to talk about all kinds of things. I don't want to. I don't know if I want to say what's in there, except that I know if I say it, the people who are really into those things will be like, "Oh yeah, I need to go get that." But I mean, there might be some vampires in there. There might be some were things in there, but I don't want to say. But it's not handled in. It's also the worlds of those works also seem very much like they could be pretty much just like the lives we are leading. If you just turned around the corner and suddenly you're like, oh wait, where am I? So they're fantastic, and I'm really excited as we begin this series, to round the corner and get ready to bring the other one to a close soon. So I just wanted to mention it and salute my friend Cadwell about that too.
Thank you, Dion. I'll say it's been very interesting to start another multiverse with you while ending one. And so this is going to be an interesting year where the Convergence saga is ending and the Reformation saga is beginning, the Darkly Lamp project.
I also just want to add in there to that as well, Cadwell, to say that, like, in case people think that like this is only esoterica we're talking about, no, like the multiverse and the societies that we encounter so far, and that I'm sure we're going to keep encountering in transmentation, transience, are organized in certain ways. Certain things are important to those societies. Certain guiding principles, just like in ours, are things that we say are important. But do we really believe that, or is that merely a tool for power and elites in that society? And then other societies are organized around completely different things, right? And just as our world is. And it's interesting, good science fiction. I should just say good work, period. But certainly, let's just talk about science fiction one. It's hardly about hardware or just about being weird. I find good science fiction is merely about how we're living, actually. Politics, political science, ethics, meaning, religion sometimes. It's a good science fiction is really about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about us and our relation to the world around us.
Well, that's, I think, a great way to end here. I really appreciate you taking the time, both of you, to talk about this truly fascinating audiobook with a completely new and different process. And of course, thank you to Blackstone Audio for helping us put this episode together.
Thank you so much, Blackstone.
Thank you, Blackstone.
I'll remind everyone to be sure to visit AudioFile's website for reviews and sound clips from thousands of audiobooks, including Transmentation Transience by Darkly Lem, narrated by Dion Graham. And please take a moment to rate and review this podcast so that you can help others find us.
Thank you, Michele.
Thanks so much for having us, Michele.
Thanks for listening.